back down and shut your trap. It's time for
Keeping It Sports with M3.
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Well, I'll need some beer.
Are you ready?
You have to ask me nicely.
Come on now, don't be bashful.
Are you ready? Are you ready for
Place for the best sports talk and news surrounding each league.
I can prove it with my usual flawless logic.
Hey, man, this time we'll do it my way.
What's your name again?
And now, here's your host, M3, Mike Rozansky. Coming to you from Cherry Hill, New Jersey. It's time for Keeping It Sports with M3, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm, of course, your host, Mike M3 Rozansky, coming to you here on this Tuesday, the 14th day of April. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all off to a good start in your week so far, whatever it is you may be doing. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to either watch me live or if you're listening to the podcast version later on in the day. I very much appreciate that and any and all support that we get from this podcast as always. Little aside before we get started with talking about the sports today, I am trying to start a YouTube channel for this podcast. So if you're listening right now, please go to YouTube and click the subscribe button because I believe I need 50 followers or subscribers, whatever they consider it, before I can start doing live streams. Something that I would like to get started with doing in the next little while here to expand the audience and have the next evolution of this podcast, probably something that I should have started doing a long time ago. And whether you're a sports fan, which you got to be to listening to this, or you got friends that are sports fans, please spread the word and tell everyone where you can find Keeping It Sports with M3 on YouTube, hopefully starting very, very soon. But until then, we got plenty to talk about today. Gonna give you some thoughts on the New York Yankees, who probably would have been the jumping off, leadoff topic of the day if I would have been doing the podcast in our normal Monday time slot. But one extra day and a exciting victory last night kind of calmed down a little bit of the anger that I had toward the Yankees going into yesterday. Still some things that I'm very much concerned about that I'll get to as we move along here. Give you some thoughts on Rory and McIlroy winning the Masters on Sunday, albeit I am not the biggest golf fan in the world, but I was paying attention to what was going on at Augusta throughout Sunday afternoon, mix in some other things as well as we get along here. But today is the beginning of what people have been waiting for all year, the NBA postseason. And say what you want about the play-in tournament and how the teams that come out of the play-in, with the exception of LeBron James and Anthony Davis leading the Lakers to the Western Conference Finals a couple of years ago, or the Miami Heat coming out of the play-in and winning a playoff series a couple of years back. This is still the beginning of a exciting time in the NBA. No more having to sit back and watch any of these crappy basketball teams try to out-tank each other over the last couple of months, like we've seen some of the trash from teams like the Pacers, Kings, Brooklyn Nets, teams that are not even worth mentioning, worth wasting one iota of breath or thought on at this given time of the year. No, now basketball actually matters. Now, this is what a lot of these top tier teams have been focusing on, have been zeroing in on all year long. And you turn on any podcast, radio station in the tri-state area, flip open any newspaper article online, they're all saying the same thing. Yeah, it's a fun regular season. It's a good regular season story here. But what happens when they get to April? What happens with this young emerging star or this team when they get to the month of April? And we've gotten to the point where we zero in even from the start of the season to April, and rather than enjoying the journey to get there, enjoying the process that it is to climb to this mountain. Now, there are teams that we have higher expectations on than others. There are teams that have got more things to prove than others. And if you're going to be fair about this, out of the East, the team with the most to prove is the Detroit Pistons. And out of the West, the team to prove most is this San Antonio Spurs. Because you look around the conference, there's no pressure on the Boston Celtics. Most of us viewed it as a kind of get through, get right kind of season for them, but they obviously didn't follow along with that script. And Jason Tatum came back earlier than we ever expected to go along with Jaylen Brown's MVP caliber season. Plus, they won a championship just a couple of years ago. So even if they were to go out in the second round or the Eastern Conference Finals, no one's going to be ripping them. No one's going to be criticizing them. The same applies for teams like the Thunder, who had an awesome start to the regular season, had a little bit of treading water there in the middle of the season when there was some injuries, but even treading water for them is remaining over 500 over the course of a 30-game stretch. And then once March hit, they were full bore ahead and showing everyone why it's still their mountaintop and everyone else is chasing them. And I also think that you can include both the Nuggets and the Lakers in the mix of things there, where there's no pressure on them. Nuggets won the championship 3 years ago, and although some pieces are different on that team, you still got arguably the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic. Jamal Murray likely going to make his first All-NBA team this year, so people aren't going to criticize them if they don't win the championship because they already have some hardware. And no one's going to criticize the Lakers, even though the LeBron haters out there are going to be pointing the finger saying, aha, see, he's not the GOAT. He's not the greatest of all time. If they go down to the Rockets, which I do expect, because you're without Luka Doncic, you're without Austin Reeves. This is an unfair ask for this team when you've got LeBron James at 41 years old, 23 years into his NBA career. He's won 4 championships, made, 9 or 10 finals appearances. Everything he does from here on out is extra credit. He's not going to catch Michael Jordan as far as any GOAT debates or as far as championships are concerned, because we've even seen that in recent years that his body does not let him get through a full postseason. The workload that he's going to have to put in order for the Lakers to have any shot against the Rockets or even a shot against OKC in the second round. Yeah, maybe a 21 to 27-year-old LeBron James could do that. Early 30s LeBron James, but 41 and doing without his best 2 teammates and without any real true size, no matter how much DeAndre Ayton tries to brag about himself. The Lakers, I've never seen a 4 seed have a free pass the way that they have it going into this postseason. And it's weird. They were so dominant in March. And then that night, 2 weeks ago against the Thunder, their entire season collapsed. Their entire season just fell apart, and they've never been able to put the pieces back together, largely because of these injuries to Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. But they look across the court. That team that they're playing, the Houston Rockets, humongous pressure, humongous expectations. They're amongst the teams, if you want to really break it down here, I would say there's two teams on the West that have the most pressure. Spurs, because of it being their first time in this and having a near MVP level season out of Victor Wembanyama, but more so the Rockets with the moves that they've made this year, including going and getting Kevin Durant. And then on the Eastern Conference, talk about the Pistons. They were the 1 seed throughout this season. Cade Cunningham, in his own right, having a MVP level season. And then the Knicks. The Knicks came 2 games short of going to the NBA Finals last year. And they ran it back, same roster pretty much, but with a different coach. Moving on from Tom Thibodeau, going with Mike Brown. There's no excuses here for them. I don't care that they're the 3 seed and they get a tougher matchup in the first round, or the fact that the Atlanta Hawks are 20-6 since the All-Star break. I'm sorry. I don't remember Dominique Wilkins walking out onto that court. I don't see Joe Johnson anywhere, Kevin Willis, Spud Webb, any of the legends of the Atlanta Hawks, if you want to refer to some of those guys as that. They have some good young pieces, and they traded away during this season what was the demon as far as the Knicks are concerned, or one of the top villains that the Knicks have faced in the past in Trae Young. But you have Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, although he's battling a little bit of an injury that probably shouldn't hold him out from playing in Game 1 this coming Saturday, and Mikal Bridges. That's as good a starting 5 as there is in the Eastern Conference. Plus, they're a deeper team than they were last year because you didn't have Mike Brown, like Tom Thibodeau was, running the starting 5 into the ground, playing them 35 to 40 minutes every night. He was giving opportunities to guys like Jordan Clarkson. He was giving opportunities when healthy to the likes of Deuce McBride or Landry Shamet or other young pieces on this team here and there fitting in, having a role, even if it was for a cup of coffee during this season, just to give his guys a little bit of a break, knowing that this is the important time of the year. So of those 4 teams that I just mentioned, you're ranking them in order as far as pressure they're facing. It's probably Knicks 1, Rockets 2. I put Pistons 3 because of the great regular season they've had. Plus, they've been just talking a lot of smack and believe that they should have beaten the Knicks last year and are probably already looking ahead to a potential Eastern Conference Finals matchup against them. But if they're not careful, they could get picked off. I mean, who's to say that maybe if he gets by the play-in over the next couple days, who's to say Joel Embiid can't go off and just have a awesome series and knock these guys out, take them out earlier than anyone would expect? Or you never know, there could be an injury to the Pistons. We know Cade Cunningham was battling the lung, or as we know, some other guys lack some maturity at times, albeit with that fight that they had in early March. Never know what could happen in a 7-game series with a team that this is really the first time that pressure is on them. But pressure works in funny ways, because while there's pressure on those respective teams, there's also pressure on individuals. There's also individuals where you look at them and say, all right, now it's April. what you're going to do, because you can go off and put up all the big numbers that you want in the regular season. But what are you going to do in the postseason? And this morning when I was thinking about this, I put together a top 5 as far as players that are facing the most pressure entering this postseason, at least in my view. And I don't have on here anyone from the Boston Celtics. Don't have the Joker on here, SGA. Those guys are all champions. Those guys have all won regular season or finals MVP awards. So those guys are in the clear. We're talking about guys that either haven't won championships or are in pressure to perform in this postseason. And number 5, I've talked about him already throughout this, but Cade Cunningham. Because when you look at the Pistons, who's the real number 2 guy on that team? Every one of these top dogs, if you want to look at them, these top 4 seeds on each conference, they have a number 2 guy, a clear, distinct guy where if the alpha is not doing it on that given night, the number 2 or the 1B, if you want to call him that, can take over and carry the way, can be the man that night. There isn't that guy for the Pistons. There isn't that guy where if Cade Cunningham's not going out there putting up a fantastic performance, that could just step up and say, I'm going to put us on our back. I'm going to lead the charge. And this is the first time in his young career where he's now facing expectations to perform under the bright lights. Number 4, Anthony Edwards. And yes, while his Minnesota Timberwolves are the underdogs to this Nuggets squad, who's largely, although Michael Porter Jr. is not there anymore, largely the same group that won a championship a couple of years ago. Anthony Edwards, with all due respect to the late, great Kobe Bryant, is the closest we've had to that Mamba mentality since Kobe Bryant retired. He is about that smoke. He is always talking trash. He's always very brash. He wants to be the face of the NBA. Well, you don't get to being the face of the NBA just by winning a round or getting to one conference finals appearance as he did 2 years ago. No, you've got to be a consistent, deep performer into the postseason. You've got to get to an NBA finals. And maybe that's a difficult ask when you consider the fact that he would have to first go through the Nuggets, then likely get through the San Antonio Spurs before a gauntlet of a war against the Oklahoma City Thunder. But you don't get, as I said, to being face of the league, which he probably has the greatest personality to fit that mold, to be that guy, by just being in the postseason and stretching the Nuggets to a 6, maybe 7 game series. Number 3 on our most pressure to perform in this postseason is Karl Anthony Towns. And you could argue that maybe he's too low on this list, especially when you consider how often Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal are calling him out on Inside the NBA, how much fans get on him, and how there's that ghost in the corner where if the Knicks don't get to an NBA Finals, this could be the end of the road for this group as we know. We all know the rumblings. We all know the rumors that we'll get to in a little bit. They don't get to a finals. This entire core as we know it, outside of Jalen Brunson, could be wiped out and shipped out of town to a Midwestern city. So this could be Towns' last opportunity to get things done here in NYC. And for as big as he is, as skilled of a big man as he is, at times he disappears on the floor. At times, he's even said it, he doesn't know what his role is And 2 years into being a Knick, 2 years into being teammates with these guys, that is not a discussion that we should be having. He needs to be assertive. He needs to, even when Brunson is hot, demand the basketball, be a presence inside, and not just settle for 3-point shots or jump shots from just inside the arc. Number 2, arguably, in my opinion, the most overrated player in the NBA, definitely of this generation, James Harden. James Harden, guy who's won regular season MVP awards, scoring titles, has been a phenomenal regular season performer. But other than when he was the third wheel in that original big three for the Oklahoma City Thunder with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, what has he ever accomplished? He's come up small in so many big spots. And now he's been traded once again to a place where, yeah, he doesn't have to be the main guy because you have Donovan Mitchell there, but he can't just fade away. He can't disappear. He can't have another stinker like he had in Game 7 against the Denver Nuggets where you're getting blown out by 40 and you're wondering where the hell is James Harden. But more so than anybody else, facing the most pressure in this postseason, Kevin Durant. And you may ask yourself, Kevin Durant, he's one of the 15 to 20 greatest players in NBA history. He's a 2-time NBA champion, but he's never going to get the full credit for those titles. It's almost, you want to make a baseball analogy here? It's almost A-Rod to Derek Jeter when it comes to him winning a championship or 2 championships with those Golden State Warriors. Because they had already won 1 before he got there. He comes in, they won 2, he was the finals MVP, and then a couple of years after he left and foolishly decided to team with the head case that is Kyrie Irving, the Warriors come back healthy and win another championship with that group without him. He has been the ultimate seeking the grass that's greener on the other side player in recent NBA history. Left the Oklahoma City Thunder after they blew a 3-1 lead to the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals. The next 2 years, they would win championships. He wasn't happy with Draymond Green. After the 2019 season, he jets off to Brooklyn and only won 1 playoff series with Kyrie Irving and James Harden. Eventually forced his way out, went to Phoenix. Nothing. Not even a conference finals appearance there. And then once again, as he sees things crumble in Phoenix, last offseason he demands a trade and goes to the Houston Rockets, where there's no other star on that team. I mean, Ahmad Thompson and Sengun are going to be really good players over the long term of their career, but they're not facing the heat or the pressure or the expectations to deliver on a legacy like Kevin Durant is. And Kevin Durant, he's always going to have that held against him, even despite being a 2-time finals MVP, until he wins a championship without Steph Curry. So, as we see, we got a full platter here as we're entering this postseason. There's so many interesting storylines, so many things to dissect, so many things to get into on a night in, night out basis. This odyssey that we're about to enter for the next 2 months here is going to be fascinating. Every night, it's going to have you on the edge of your seat. And even for someone whose team has been irrelevant for years, I get excited for this time of year. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to get down to watching NBA postseason games. Will it be the playing games over the next 2 nights, the 8 seed matchups decided on Friday night, or when we really tip things off for real and we're down to 16 teams with the first round of the NBA playoffs getting started this coming Saturday. Let's go. All right, a lot more I want to get to as we go on here. Going to give you some thoughts coming up on what's going on with the Milwaukee Bucks, some comments made by Charles Barkley over the weekend, mixing some thoughts, as I said, about the Yankees, Rory McIlroy winning the Masters, maybe another football topic to get into this week. I wonder if anything happened in the NFL circles that somebody wants to talk about. So, give you some thoughts on pretty much everything as we go on here for the next about 40 minutes or so. Glad you guys could join me this week. And like I tell you, each and every single week at this time, whether it's Monday or Tuesday, please sit back, relax, help put your feet up if you feel like it, and continue keeping it sports with M3.
I'll be back.
As I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, thank God we're entering the postseason because I've had enough of the end of regular season nonsense that went on for the final 2 weeks here, whether it be the tanking or all of the players that were healthy and sitting out of games. Now, it's one thing in the case of certain teams when they have their playoff seeding locked up and you have a player that is dealing with some kind of a nagging issue. I'm not going to expect for Victor Wembanyama when the Spurs have the number 2 seed locked up and he's clinched the 65-game minimum for games played for postseason awards for him to be playing on the final Sunday of the season. And Joker played 18 minutes in the first half of that game and was able to then sit the rest of the game. And people made a big deal, should Victor have played to push the Nuggets down to 4 to avoid them until the Western Conference Finals potentially and not have to go through the idea of having to play both the Nuggets and the Thunder? You're going to have to play them at some point eventually if you want to become champions. You can't just avoid every team that is out there. This idea of resting guys and sitting guys to try to set up certain matchups, at times it can be your worst enemy because then maybe you call off a hot streak that that player or your team are going through, as well as maybe it gets you a matchup against a team you weren't expecting where that team gets hot at the right time and they knock you out in the first round. And the same thing applies, I hear in all of these people on podcasts or calling into the New York sports radio stations concerned about playing the Atlanta Hawks. I said before that they shouldn't be concerned about playing them and that they should get done with them within 5 games. I mean, if that's any kind of a series, they've got a legit problem. If you're concerned about a first round matchup, then you really aren't a true championship contender. But to get back to the original point here, over the weekend, especially on Friday, the second to last night of the NBA season, you had 168 players sitting out games, including 14 members of the Memphis Grizzlies as they continue to tank to assure their spot at the top of the lottery. The Jazz and Grizzlies combined the other day played 13 players in a hideous 147-101 game. Yet my Brooklyn Nets playing only 7 players in the final 3 games of the season. And some of these guys, I get Michael Porter Jr. or Danny Wolf dealing with legitimate injuries that they got to have surgery on, even Day'Ron Sharp. But Claxton, Clowney, Williams, guys that are all in their mid to early 20s, get your ass out there on the court. You can't play more than 60 games in a season. Like, what the hell are we doing here? And I make a big deal over Mikal Bridges and his flukish game streak where the last 2 years on the final day of the season, he'll suit up, come into the game for anywhere from 6 to 20 seconds, immediately foul a guy, and then be out of the game and sit down for the rest of the game. But at least leading up to that, he was a workhorse. He was out there playing through things and grinding through trying to get his team in the best possible position. The rest of these teams, it was a joke. It was an embarrassment watching them. I mean, Charles Barkley said it best over the weekend on Inside the NBA. You guys agreed to this in the collective bargaining agreement when it came to the 65-game minimum. And it's a joke how they complain about how many games they got to play for it and making up these fake injuries at times, these maintenance days, these load management stuff. And come on now. They've lessened the schedule, or should I say spread out the schedule for you big babies. They give you a week for the All-Star break. And you're not going to go out there and try to battle through the last night of the season. Shame on you. And the same goes with the tanking stuff. I mean, you saw some teams do some really ridiculous stuff when it came to tanking. Now, in some cases, when it comes to the Nets who are really lacking in talent, or the Indiana Pacers who had no motivation to play this year after Tyrese Halliburton's injury and losing Miles Turner in free agency, I understand it. But these teams intentionally losing in the last couple of weeks when the 20 postseason teams had already been decided, and I hope Adam Silver and his brainheads around him are able to figure something out here to monetize tanking, because Draymond Green, love him or hate him, he's right when he said, if I do something wrong, I get fined. Why don't we fine the hell out of these teams? Make it so it's unbearable for these ownerships and front offices where tanking is not even a mindset. It's, if you happen to be bad, that's one thing, but you're not going out there to intentionally lose games. We're about to see a changing in the tides when it comes to one Midwest city team, and that being the Milwaukee Bucks. This team, I fully expect, will not resemble anything like what we've seen in recent years at the start of next season. First off, they've already parted ways with Doc Rivers, and I give him credit. He handled what had to be an uncomfortable situation there over the last couple of years with Giannis and his ongoing back and forth, trade speculations, trade rumors, him dealing with injuries this year and last year. He was never able to get that team over the hurdle, even when they had a healthy Giannis and Damian Lillard. And hell, last year, those guys were healthy for just around 30 games together. So, he did his best with what it had to be an uncomfortable situation, even for as overrated as I think Doc tends to be at times. And the basketball media kisses this guy's ass for somebody that's only won one championship and had a boatload of Hall of Famers on there. He's, in reality, been the captain of blowing 3-1 leads in the postseason. And not just with one organization, we're talking with multiple teams, whether it be, you want to talk about the Clippers, the 76ers, wherever you want to talk about. This guy has not gotten it done in so many big spots outside of that first year with Pierce, Garnett, and Ray Allen. So now they're moving on. The name that I'm already hearing is Taylor Jenkins as far as his possible replacement, which, if that's the case, just pack up the show and start selling ice cream. Taylor Jenkins, and I criticize Doc Rivers. At least he's accomplished something. Taylor Jenkins is just a madman who's never won squat in his NBA career. That is like really going to the outhouse when it comes to picking an NBA head coach. But where things are going to be immensely different there next year, I would be stunned if we see Giannis Antetokounmpo suit up for the Milwaukee Bucks once again. And I think it's for both sides' best interest, because if you look at that team he's got there, there's nothing other than an overpaid Miles Turner, Bobby Portis, who's pissed off at everybody all the time because they're showing a lack of effort, not showing enough attention to detail, and are seemingly getting into wars with the coaching staff in a practice. If you read Sham's details on the internal fighting that's gone out at practices and in-game huddles this season, there's no young talent to build upon on that team. And Giannis is 31 years old. He wants to still have a chance to win. You look at it, he's probably got, I would say, at least 4 to 5 prime years left and 7 to 8 years left as far as being a really good NBA player in this league. While he's got that time, he wants to capitalize on it and be a champion. And I understand. I respect him wanting to be loyal. Milwaukee's the only NBA home he's ever known. He was drafted there, developed there, went from being a six-man to most improved player to league MVP, a finals MVP, a champion, considered by some at worst one of the 3 best players in the world. He's got ties there, a bond that it's really hard to break. But as Kevin Garnett about 20 years ago laid down the blueprint, sometimes you can be as loyal as you want, but the organization is not loyal back to you. And you're not going to be getting anywhere close to an NBA Finals as long as you're in Milwaukee. Not with this regime running things, not with this roster. They're nowhere even close. They're closer to selecting first overall in the NBA draft than they are to holding up the Larry O'Brien trophy. It's time to move on. It's time to get out of there. Now, whether that means going to his dream destination, the Knicks, that remains to be seen. Because I think a lot will be decided on what happens with them in the postseason. And if Karl Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges are stinkers and they fall to either the Celtics in the second round or lose to either the Pistons or the Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals. Here's the thing. Anything less than an NBA Finals appearance for the Knicks, you've got a clean house there when it comes to the coach and that roster not named Jalen Brunson. Everybody has to be on high alert because Giannis is the missing piece that could change everything. So you have this postseason to show that you don't need him. Because if you don't get the job done, if say you lose in 7 games in a hard-fought battle to the Oklahoma City Thunder, that's one thing. That's somewhat forgivable, but still then there's going to be the talk. There's going to be the idea. It's going to be a total annihilation of the Knicks as we know it if they don't get to that idea that I just threw out there. Anything less than the NBA Finals, and we're talking about a marriage between Giannis and the Knicks this coming summer. But who knows? There could be some other team out there, some other location that he sees as a viable championship threat lurking in the background that we're not talking about right now, but come this July, he's turning into a contender and making a real threat to make some noise going into next year.
I'll be back.
It brings warmness to my heart when we see fighting or angst or just, I don't want to call it hate, but bitterness between two teams or even just two players in sports. When, yeah, they show they care about winning, but at the same time, they have an animosity toward their opponent. I think in the world of sports, since a lot of these guys in each sport, it's not just pointed at one league in particular. A lot of these guys came up, whether it be through minor league baseball, through playing football in high school and college, or playing AAU basketball together. These guys get to know each other. They become accustomed to each other. So there's a little bit too much buddying for my liking in the sports world at times. So it brought some warmness to my heart a week ago tonight when you saw that fight break out between Los Angeles Angels DH Jorge Soler and pitcher of the Atlanta Braves Ronaldo Lopez. This is stemming from earlier in that game, Soler hits a home run off Lopez. Next at bat, Soler was hit by a 95-mile-an-hour fastball by Lopez, and surprisingly, there was no warnings by the umpire. In my mind, Lopez should have been thrown out of the game because I think that's just such bush league. You give up a bomb to the guy early in the game, and then you can hit him next at bat. Plus, you look at it historically, Soler has owned Lopez. He's got 5 home runs against him, a couple of other extra base hits. So he has been dominant against this pitcher, somebody that he was teammates with just a couple of seasons ago. So when in the 5th inning, there was a throwdown to second base in the middle of the dead play, they're staring each other down from the mound to home plate. And they're like, F it, let's go. Lopez, though, seemed kind of gutless. He had the ball clinched in his right hand, was using that as part of his punch, but thankfully no one else got hurt in this. But I love seeing that. I love seeing some animosity there. The one thing I don't like is that these two guys received similar punishments from Major League Baseball. They were both handed down 7-game suspensions, and Lopez had his suspension appealed down to 5 games, which is total BS. Because, yeah, I know they're getting game checks taken away from them, but in Lopez's case, he only misses 1 game. He's a starting pitcher. So he, with the off day that the Angels have over the course of the last week, they were able to manipulate the rotation to the point where, yeah, he's not getting paid for 7 games, can't be in the dugout, but he's not truly missing any in-game action. Whereas Soler, while he's still in the midst of his appeal process, could miss as many as 7 games. Something, I don't know whether it's got to be collectively bargained or the Major League Baseball just says enough to the union. We're going to start really coming down hard on these pitchers and punishing them. And if you appeal, think about it, you're appealing against another member of the union. But you can't just be suspending the pitcher for the same amount of time as the batter that he threw at and instigated this thing. That, to me, is just not fair. Now, as you notice, I'm doing this podcast on a Tuesday rather than our normal Monday time slot. And if I had been doing this podcast yesterday, in all likelihood, I would have saved talking about the NBA postseason until segment 2 or 3 and kick things off with talking about the New York Yankees. Because I, going into yesterday, was aggravated with this team. Yeah, it's only 15, now 16 games into the season, and no one across baseball, not even the Dodgers, has truly taken off and run away and hid from their competition. Hell, you look around the American League East, they're all dealing with some kind of an issue, whether it be pitching injuries to the Rays, whether it be injuries to 2 members of the lineup with the Toronto Blue Jays being without Kirk and being without George Springer. The Red Sox having a long losing streak in the early part of the season. Hell, even Crochet got hammered around last night. Pete Alonso hasn't exactly been setting the world on fire yet for the Baltimore Orioles. So yeah, it's still early in the schedule. But going into yesterday, the Yankees had lost 6 out of their last 7 games, and it would have been a 7-game losing streak if not for the fact that the Sacramento A's choose to employ Mark Leiter Jr., undisputedly the worst reliever in all of baseball, who gave up 4 runs and a moonshot to Ahmed Rosario last Tuesday night. Outside of that, it was not a good week for the New York Yankees. And a lot of the concerns that I've had with the team coming into the year were popping up, showing their ugly head over the course of that 7-game stretch. Whether it be, I'll continue to bring it up, it continues to be a problem. I know over the last couple of days, some guys have shown some signs. Wells having a home run on Saturday, with Caballero having a couple of go-ahead RBIs, even in a losing effort on Saturday, having a big home run last night. But the bottom half of the Yankee order has been hideous. I mean, Jazz Chisholm, I don't know whether it's he got in his head with this 50-50 talk back in spring training, or it's we've just been overrating him and he's an imbecile to deal with or an immature brat. But he's been awful between his putrid play in the field, not knowing rules and acting dumb, talking to the media after the game, his hideous use of the challenge system, which I truly believe Boone and the coaching staff have to sit him down and say, I don't care where the pitch is. You are not allowed to use our ABS challenges, because he, more than anybody else, even though the Yankees have been amongst the worst teams so far when it comes to using them, he's been the worst user of them all. He can't use those challenges. He puts the Yankees in bad predicaments, and you need to save those for potentially the big boys like Judge, Stanton, Bellinger, Rice, any of those guys getting screwed throughout a game. Not because, he's unhappy that a low changeup was called strike 2 against him when it clearly hit the black. But the bottom half of that lineup has been outright hideous. You look at this offense, what they had been doing going into last night. They were 28th in Major League Baseball in batting average, hitting $156 during that losing streak with only 8 extra base hits. Now, some guys have started to come out of it. As I said, Caballero's gotten some hits in recent days, but he's not someone you're expecting to be a regular performer. He's unfortunately just filling a spot until they decide to waste our time with the child known as Anthony Volpe once again, who unfortunately is beginning his minor league rehab assignment tonight. But you had higher expectations for other players on this team. You certainly weren't expecting Jazz Chisholm and Ryan McMahon to be the worst hitters in baseball, even as hideous as Ryan McMahon was in the second half last year, and as much of a clown as Jazz tends to be. Now I have to take a step back here and be a little bit fair. It took you 16 games. But welcome to the 2026 season, Trent Grisham. Thanks for finally participating. Thanks for finally doing something. Who last night dragged his ass off the bench and did something we haven't seen since Raul Ibanez in 2012, when he came off the bench with not just a pinch hit home run in the 5th inning to give the Yankees a lead, but came back in the 9th inning and had a game-tying 2-run homer. Took you a while, but maybe you can actually try to earn that $22 million salary you were given this off season. Yeah, 1 game, and while I still need to see more, I could be fair and give some credit to someone I am highly critical of and don't have a lot of trust in. And last night was the first time where really the pitching let the Yankees down. And other than surprisingly Paul Blackburn, I think everybody that came out of the bullpen last night either gave up an earned run or allowed a run to score, like in the case of Fernando Cruz walking in the tying run in the fourth inning. And I'm not sure what happened with Will Warren, whether it was the error by Caballero that got in his head or he just totally lost the strike zone. But finally, you had this offense step up and back up the pitching staff. And I'm not expecting 10 runs, 11 runs per game. That's an unfair ask. Even though we saw a lot of football-like scores in baseball yesterday, and you saw the Twins put up 11 on Crochet. The Pirates put up 16 runs. The Dodgers shut out the Mets, who have now been on a 20-inning scoreless streak, and now there's even Carlos Mendoza watch going on as Steve Cohen has gone on the trip with them to LA with how that team's performing. But at least they have an excuse. They don't have Juan Soto, and there's some that believe that Lindor might be battling a concussion since a bump that he took early in the season, albeit it's been undiagnosed. But there's no excuse for the hideousness that we've seen from this Yankee lineup. None. They haven't been missing anybody. They've had essentially the same squad as last year with this lineup, and that's something that's led a lot of Yankee fans like myself to pulling their freaking hair out and being aggravated about, because it's the same song and dance with this lineup every year. But you want to see better than that. You want to see this team go out there and back up this pitching staff. Stop seeing pitching performances like what you saw from Ryan Weathers, who's struggled to start this year, but had a dominant performance against the A's last Thursday, only to get no credit whatsoever as the Yankees couldn't score a run from him. He was a hard luck loser of a 1-0 game. Or Ye gives up a tying run in the 8th inning on Saturday, but Max Fried, I thought for the most part, was excellent on Saturday. Gave them 8 innings, and they didn't have to deploy anyone in the bullpen besides Bednard and Hill. You can't keep wasting performances like that. It's time for this lineup to wake the hell up. And whether there's changes made along the way, not talking about Volpe replacing Caballero, but I'm talking about things like if this was just a one-night fluke and Grisham sinks back to the way he was the first 15 games, do you eventually call up Jason Dominguez, who's knocking the cover off the ball? Or some point in this summer, he's gotten off to a hot start in the minor leagues. Does George Lombard Jr. become an option for this team at either short or third base? Those are questions that are going to pop up. Those are things that are going to keep being a discussion point if this lineup keeps being as madly inconsistent as possible. And you've gotten really good starts from Rice and Stanton. Stanton has stayed healthy. Bellinger and Judge have both shown signs of waking up, especially Judge the last couple of days, 3 home runs after having 3 in like the first 14 games of the season. So there are signs there, but there's also a lot of things to be concerned. Concerns that we had before the season, and until we get a larger sample size, we're going to continue to be concerned about and looking at with a raised eyebrow saying, I don't know, that doesn't seem like the capabilities of a real championship team.
I'll be back.
Not just the sports world, but in life in general, I am one of the biggest mind your own damn business people that there is. I think with social media, as great as it can be, with Facebook, Instagram, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, Snapchat, they're all useful services for us, but they also can be at times very intrusive. I mean, we use these at times to be a little bit too intrusive on so many people in multiple walks of life, not just people we know, but also people that are famous, whether it be actors, whether it be politicians, whether it be athletes, coaches in some examples, reporters, in all walks of life. Social media has allowed us all to essentially be members of the media without having any real training or experience to it. We're all individual reporters at times when we see something and all want to be that one that jumps out there and breaks a news. So the latest example of that, of course, is what has popped up in the last week with the photos that were published by the New York Post a week ago showing New England Patriots head coach Mike Vrabel and a reporter from The Athletic, formerly of ESPN, Diana Rossini, embracing and interlocking hands on the roof of an adults-only resort in Arizona. And I'm not here to judge anyone. I mean, Lord knows I am no angel in my own right. I know both of these people are married, and that's questions that they got to answer with their own spouses, whether they were having affairs. So I'm not going to sit here and judge. It seems like just based off we see in the pictures and any videos that may be out there, everything was consenting and no one was taking advantage of the other. And if they're happy, so be it. That's not our place to judge them, although it could be a hindrance on their careers, especially in the case of Diana Rossini, as The Athletic has suspended her and now is doing a full investigation because that could be a considered conflict of interest kind of thing here if you have one of your lead reporters having a more, should we say, more than just friendly or more than just working relationship with a head coach in the NFL while she's still married. So that is something that they all got to deal with in their own right. But where I want to turn this toward is Mike Vrabel has always viewed himself as like a tough guy, as like, yeah, I'm a big badass. I'm built like a brick. And he was a tough linebacker. He was a really good player when he played for those New England Patriots teams during the first half of their dynasty. But he's pulled a totally gutless move here, as we're now 9 days away from the NFL draft. I, for one, can't wait for the draft to get here and be done with so I can stop seeing all of these mock drafts. But leading up to these drafts, you hear from the head coaches. You hear from them doing their pre-draft press conferences throughout this week. All of them usually talk. Well, Mike Vrabel yesterday did not participate in the Patriots' annual pre-draft press conference. Instead, he sent the VP of player personnel, Elliot Wolf, out there to conduct the press conference. He wasn't in attendance, and we will not be seeing or hearing from him until we get to the NFL draft. He'll be in the green room as long as the Patriots don't decide some moral clause and fire him in the next week. But I'm like, Vrabel, you can't avoid it forever. All right. Until the media talks to you, this is going to be a topic of conversation. Maybe, it's calmed down in the last couple of days, but people are going to take their notes. People are going to say, all right, well, what do I want to talk about when I see Mike Vrabel? Oh yeah. What were you doing at a resort with Diana Rossini? That's going to be a topic of conversation. So why not just suck it up and have your medicine now and take it on the chin like a man rather than run from it and avoid it? Because if you run from it and avoid it on draft night, when you're potentially sitting there with your first round pick, or after the draft sitting there with your draft picks having your opening press conference, rather than talking about what skills and what things you liked about drafting this player and what things you saw in the process leading up to the draft led you to making these decisions, people are going to want to ask you about Diana Rossini. So it's going to keep being a thing, keep being a topic until you get in front of the reporters and face it head on like a man. And for all of those people that are saying, why isn't he immediately fired? Why isn't the Patriots moving on from him? Doesn't this come off as like the Ime Udoka situation from, 2-3 years ago? You have to remember a couple of things here. Number one, you have Robert Kraft, who does not have, for as much as people want to commend him for being this class act, being this just great person to work with, he's got some skeletons in his own closet from years past, even leading up to a Super Bowl, that are not the best representation in the world. And the difference between this and Ime Udoka was having an affair with someone that also worked in the Boston Celtics organization. In this case, while both situations you had two adults in the midst of what we perceive a consent relationship, in this case, Diana Rossini, as far as I know, does not have any financial ties to the New England Patriots. So that is the difference here. Now let's close things up with a brighter story. Let's close things up with a good story. And I'm not, to be honest with y'all, to be upfront, I'm not the biggest golf fan in the world. All right. The four major sports, the NFL, Major League Baseball, the NBA, and NHL to a certain degree, that's what I focus on. That's what draws me in. You know, occasionally big moments, big games in college basketball and college football, like when we get to the college football playoff or we get to March Madness, those sports will then suck me in. But by and large part, I have never been the biggest golf guy in the world. But there are stories that happen time and time again where it draws me in. In some cases, you have bad stories like what happened with Tiger Woods several weeks back. But now we can put a positive sign of things on the world of golf, as they just got done with one of their biggest events of the year, the Masters. And what a spiking of the football moment it had to be for Rory McIlroy. And he'll never admit it. He seems like too classy of a guy to do something like that. But for those of you who don't pay attention or are not familiar with the golf world, the Masters is the one event where there's not exactly a hardware trophy to it. The bigger deal is getting that green jacket, being the champion and putting on that green jacket on Sunday at Augusta. And you're presented with the green jacket by the previous year's Masters champion. Well, that couldn't happen this year because Rory McIlroy became the fourth competitor in golf history to repeat as Masters champion. Whether it's in their Great Hall or on the green out there in Augusta, what a spiking of the football moment that has to be, where once you realize that you outlast Scottie Scheffler and company and you're winning this event, you get to put the jacket on yourself rather than someone put the jacket on for you. And this is really an inspirational moment for this guy because think about it. Prior to last year when he won the Masters, he had gone over a decade without winning a major in golf. There started to be a lot of people questioning him, questioning whether we could view him as an all-time great. The Masters was that one thing that was eluding his career, kind of the same way that unfortunately the U.S. Open was the one chink in the armor that eluded Phil Mickelson's career. And in all likelihood, with his age, he's not likely going to get another real crack at getting to that. But Rory, being a guy in his mid to late 30s now, I think he's only 36 years old, You didn't want that to be the hindrance. You didn't want that to be the one knock on his career. And now 2 years in a row, after going a decade without winning a major, he's finally done it. He's completed the career Grand Slam. He's won 6 majors in golf. And just seems like the pressure of the world has come off him. And this is a guy, unlike some of these other guys, like Scotty Scheffler and others that are on tour, whether it's the PGA or LIV, a lot of these guys distance themselves, try to make it seem like what happens throughout these tournaments doesn't affect them emotionally. This is a guy that's been quite open and honest with us all and letting us all in to what goes on in his personal life, how he takes this emotionally, how he handles these losses, how he handles these victories, and how the weight of the world came off of him in finally doing this a year ago, and now doing this again is just extra credit, and doing it in a fashion where he was dominant the first 2 rounds, then the field started catching up to him on Saturday to the point where he even lost the lead at one point on Sunday. But in the back 9, once again seized control of the tournament and was able to outlast Scotty Scheffler amongst others that tried to make a surge here. He's a guy that really is inspirational, is a great player, someone easy to root for. And he's nowhere close to being done. As I said, he's 36 years old. He's younger than me. You figure he's got at least another decade of this as long as he keeps himself healthy, and he seems to keep himself in really good shape, doesn't do anything stupid or foolish off the playing field or outside of golf, unlike what we've seen from Tiger in the last 15 years, where you're not going to have any questions about him and him potentially hindering his golf career, hindering his greatness. Now, is he going to catch Tiger Woods? Who knows? There's a lot left to be written in this, and who knows who comes along as far as young talent coming up. You still got Scheffler, you still got other guys like Justin Rose as part of this that are going to be contending for these tournaments. But for the next 10 years, you've got a golfer that is a great player, easy to root for, and I think has even better days ahead of him now that he's gotten this giant monkey off his back and could just go out there relaxingly and play and attempt to make his legacy even greater than what he's already done so far in his career. And that, my friends, was Keeping It Sports on M3 for Tuesday, April 14th, 2026. Everyone, please have a great night. Have a great rest of your week. Whether you're a wrestling nerd like me, you got WrestleMania coming up, enjoy that. Whatever fun stuff you do, try to live this life to the fullest. And I'll talk to you guys again, whether it's Monday or Tuesday, sometime next week. Until then, peace.
We have to go. Good night, everybody. I have had enough of you. Thank you for all the fun. Thank you. Hey, shut up, will you?
I don't want to see you, I don't want to hear you, I don't want to smell you. Now leave. I'll be back.